Um, Jyoti, I think you are the host now. So, Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha Tatsavitra Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Asto Ma Satgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityurma Amritam Gamya Om Sehna Bhavatu Sehna Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahi Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi Om Shanti 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 Om. Good morning, and today is our Vivekachudamani Day. And if you remember, we ended our class, last class was verse number 149. Covered by the five sheaths, such as the food sheath, which are produced by its own divine power, the self ceases to appear, just as the water in a tank ceases to appear due to the collection of moss, which is born out of itself. Itself means water. Where is moss coming from? From the water. But once the moss is there, we cannot see the water. The same way, all these five sheaths, which our physical gross body, subtle body, causal body are made up of, whose energy they come up with? The energy of the Atma. But then we cannot see the Atma, we cannot see God. All we see is these layers. Okay, the five sheaths: food sheath, the pran sheath, the mental sheath, the intellectual sheath, and then the bliss sheath. These are all the sheaths. So now we're going to start the class. Did we do 149 last time or no? I don't know. We have done 149. Okay. So today's class will start with 150. तात शैवेल अपनय सम्यक सलिलम प्रतीयते शुद्धम तृष्णः संतापरम sadhya सौख्ये pradam param पुंसः. That means that sheval, moss, apnaya, when removed, samyak, absolutely, salilam, water, pratiyate, becomes visible. Shuddham means pure, trishna, thirst, santap haram, remover of sorrow, santap, sadhya, immediate, Sokhye Pradam, giver of joy. Param means great, Punsaha, the person. When the moss is removed, absolutely pure water, which can quench the pangs of thirst and give immediate joy, becomes visible. So this is connected with the last verse. So he's giving us a analogy over here that moss comes from the water, covers the water, remove the moss, you can see the water. Moss cannot quench the thirst. Only the water can quench the thirst. But we have to remove the moss. The same way we have to learn how to remove or detach from these layers, the Panchakosh, to really know who we are. So the moss has the properties of fixing and absorbing all the impurities in the water. And that's what happens with our personality also. The term Trishna, traditionally it is used in a sense of indulgence, Trishna. But this word is also used for spiritual love also, Krishna. So indulgence in the sense objects is the cause for all the troubles of the world. But when we apprehend the reality, then we can quench that ultimate thirst by knowing who we are. Because the spiritual thirst can never be quenched from these layers of personalities or this visible world. The same way we can never quench our thirst by eating the moss. We have to drink the water. So drinking water alone can quench our thirst. So the same way, knowing ourself, the real self, the Atma, will quench our thirst, the spiritual thirst. Not by going somewhere, but by not having something. So this is the deep significance of this verse over here. Okay. Now in verse number 151, he says, Panchanam api koshanam apvadehe vibhatihi ayam shuddha nitya anand ik rasaha pratyagrupaha para swayam jyotihi. Panchanam api. Panchanam means of the five. Api means even. Koshanam of the sheets. Apvade, when negated, denied. Vibhati, appears or shines. Ayam means this, Shuddha, pure. Nitya Anand, everlasting bliss. Ik rasaha. Ras is the essence. Ik means one, the one essence. Prati group, the indwelling, like inside the sheets. Paraha, supreme. Swayam Jyotihi, self-effulgent, self-luminous. When all five sheets have been negated, negated means I am not this. When we do the introspection, then we understand that I'm not the body, I'm not the prana, I'm not the mind, I'm not the intellect. So this is what negated means. So when all five sheets have been negated, the self is apprehended as being the essence of everlasting bliss, as the indwelling. So in innermost, that's where it is self-effulgent, supreme. Supreme. So what we are learning over here, that these five koshas, they have arisen from the Atma, because Atma is the one which really gives the power to them. They have their individual properties, and accordingly there is a definite sets of experiences. But at the same time, their experiences or the tragedies do not belong to the Atma. When I, the consciousness entity, the Atma, withdraws from these five layers, five sheets, then I see the luminosity of me. Then I see how self-effulgent I am. So these five are dependent upon the Atma. Atma is not dependent upon these five. That's what this self-effulgence means. And it's eternal. Eternal is that which is not conditioned by the past, present, and future. That's eternal. So this reality, this Atma, is eternal bliss. Nitya Anand. A bliss that is not conditioned by time. Because what is a time? Time is a concept of mind. But bliss is an experience transcending the mind. We got to learn how to transcend this mind, only then we can really experience this bliss. And another term he uses over here, ek ras. Ek ras means it's one essence. It's changeless, uncontaminated, and eternal. That's what the soul is. And this Atma is realized subjectively deep within the heart, not objectively as something existing somewhere outside. Okay? It's almost like every day we go through the experience, we are a dreamer when we sleep. Dreamer becomes the waker when the dream ends or the dreamer ends. It's not a dreamer anymore, it's a waker. The same way, when I apprehend the Paramatma, I realize how baseless and stupid it was that I considered myself to be a little Jivatma. What is a Jivatma? Individualized soul. Jivatma is with that ego is still attached to it. Okay, so we don't have to go somewhere. This is what who we are. And this is what this great Acharya is telling us. He's telling us again and again the same thing. Hopefully we'll realize this. It's not just something we read about or something we hear about it or somebody else's experience. He's telling us how to experience it yourself also. Because unless it becomes our experience, it is just a information on our head. But when it becomes our experience, then we, what he's talking about, these words, the ek ras, the bliss, nityananda, this is how our life will be. Nityananda. 152. Atam anatam vivekaha. This is what we need to do. Atam anatam vivekaha. Kartavyaha bandh mukte. Vidushaha ten ev anandi. Bhavati swam vigyaye sat chit anandam. Atam anatam vivekaha. Discrimination between the self and the non-self. We have to learn how to discriminate between these two. Kartavyaha should be done. This is our duty. The topmost duty is this. We have made the secondary duties as a goal of our life. This is our duty, kartavya. Bandh mukte, for liberation from bondage. Vidushaha, by the wise. Ten, by that. Ev means alone. Anandi, happy, blissful. Bhavati becomes. Swam, one's own self. Vigyai, having known. Sat means existence. Chit means knowledge. Ananda means bliss. The wise man should discriminate between the self and the not self. I mean, how clearly he can instruct us. We want to be wise, that's why we are studying. But we need to do our part also. So the wise man should discriminate between the self and the non-self in order to remove the bondage. Okay, if we think that no, I'm okay, bondaged, then we don't need to. But if we have had enough of this bondage and we want to become free, we need to do this. Only then does he know his own self to be absolute existence, knowledge, bliss, Sat Chit Anand. We are that. Okay, we are Sat Chit Anand. But we have not removed the ignorance. Only then does he become blissful. See, very clearly he is telling us, if this is what you want, this is what you have to do. We want that, we want to be blissful, but we don't want to do this. He says this is the only way. There's no other way. Discriminate between the self and the non-self. So those who walk this path of Gyan, this is the Gyan. They always distinguish between Atma and Anatma. Atma and Anatma. Temporary and permanent, truth and untruth. Constantly discriminate between the real and unreal, self and not self. Continuously analyze every experience. Don't waste time. Something which is a temporary, do not just waste time on it so much. See, in this body itself, we reside in it. Sure, this is a housing for us, but 100% effort, 100% time, 100% energy, if we just spend on cleaning this body, feeding this body, taking care of this body alone, never pay attention to the deeper layers and the deepest one, we are not wise. Not according to Shankaracharya ji or any other yogi guru. We got to, time is precious. So how do we allocate this time? So this is called a process of discrimination and assertion. Only through this process a person can release himself from the sorrows of bondage and have this eternal bliss, which is our real nature actually. We don't have to bring this bliss from somewhere. We are this bliss, but we are unaware of it because we did not pay much attention to it. That's why sometimes these gurus, they give the example that a person is looking for a key outside on the street. A wise person comes, what are you looking for? He says, I'm looking for my keys. He said, where did you drop it? Can you think about it? When did you have it last time? He said, inside my house. Then why are you looking outside? That's what we are doing. The bliss is right here. Our real nature is bliss. But we are looking here and there, running frantically, looking for that bliss somewhere else. It is just like that person. 153. Munjat ishikam iv drishye vargat pratyancham atmanam asangam akriyam vivichye tatra pravilapye sarvam tat atmanah tishti yas muktaha. Munjat. Munj is a name of a grass. It's a long grass. It's also called like a reed. So from the munj grass, munjat, ishikam, a stalk. Iv means like drishya vargat, from the grasp of seen. That is the not self. Prancham, the subject. Atmanam, self. Asangam, unattached. Akriyam, actionless. Vivichye, separating. Tatra means there. Pravilapye, having emerged. Sarvam, all or everything. Tat atmanaha, identified with it. Tishtati remains. Ya means he or he who. Sa means he. So ya sa means who and he. Muktaha, free. He who separates all sense objects perceived, felt and thought of from the subjective, unattached, actionless self, like the enveloping sheaths separating from the core of the munj grass, he is free. For having merged everything with it, he remains ever identified with it. So he's giving us another beautiful example here. So munj is a type of a grass which is nothing more than a stalk of leaves. It's like a leaf after leaves. So you just have onion. Some people give the example of onions. So you just keep on removing the layers of the onion. So this munj grass, you keep on separating the leaves. And then they are held together. All these leaves are held together. But you keep on removing. And the end, what do you see? A stalk. Okay? Which is hardly seen. See, just like an onion, also you keep on peeling. What do you see inside? When you peel all the layers, little emptiness in there. So, the same way, disidentification with the sheaths. What is really keeping these sheaths together? The Atma. But you got to learn how to detach from these sheaths, 5 sheaths. Panchkosh. Ann mein kosh, pran mein kosh, mano mein kosh, vigyan mein kosh, and anand mein kosh. These 5 sheaths. So, but Atma is actionless. Actionless, because actions are done by these sheaths, not by the Atma. So that inside that munj grass also, inner core is very tender, very delicate. So that's why he says all that can be classified as a seen, which is perceived, felt, and thought of, is other than the subject. So the tenderness inside, you see only the leaves. The tenderness is the real thing inside the grass. The same way, our Atma and all the perception, all the feelings, all the actions are done with these sheaths. So Atma is unattached, actionless. He's just telling us to do some introspection on it. So these kind of verses are good for us to contemplate and remember at the time of meditation also. And these are also a definition of a liberated person. a man of God realization, because he said, he who separates all sense objects, he, that person is the liberated person. He doesn't identify with what he's feeling, what he's perceiving, what he's doing. He remains ever identified with it. See, the first word is he who separates all sense objects. And towards the end, he says he is free. And how did he get free? By merged everything, for having merged everything with it, he remains ever identified with it, the Atma. Now we'll see in the following verses, Shankaracharya is taking these 5 sheaths one by one, and each one is described fully. Fully means there are several verses used for each one of them, especially the first one. So food sheath, he's teaching us how to negate the food sheath from verses 154 and 164. That many, because we do identify ourselves with the food sheath so much. And food sheath is what? This body. And that's why he is bringing our attention with the help of with all these verses. So we are going to go through some of them today, and then we'll in next class we'll finish it up. So food sheath. But food sheath in the sense that he is trying to teach us how to negate from the, he's not saying ignore it, but negation of this. Don't get attached to it, take care of it. Just like we don't get attached to the clothes we are wearing. What do we do with it? We don't get attached to it. We know these are the clothes we are wearing. The same way we got to always remember this body, physical body, is just like our clothes. The problem is the attachment with it. See, just like if I say, no, I don't want to take off this sweater, I get attached to it. Somebody will say that, yeah, you have gone really crazy. So the same thing we have done, we have gotten so attached to this body, we don't understand the temporariness of it. We don't understand that this body has been given to us for a purpose, for a short while. Just like these clothes we wear. If we live a life like that, we are closer to feeling our real nature. This attachment to the temporary does not let us realize the permanent. That's why he's using all these verses, so that we can, some word, somewhere, it hits us, and then we start on this path. Look at a compassion in the heart of these rishis for people like us. They were already there. Out of compassion for us, they gave us all this. So let's look at verse number 154. Deha ayam anbhavnah anmaya tu koshah cha anen jivati vinashyati tadvihinah tvak charam mas rudir asti purish rashi na ayam swayam bhavitum aharati nitya shuddha. Deha, body. Ayam, this. Anbhavnah. It is a bhavan of food, or it's a product of food. Anbhavna. Anmaya, the food sheath. Tu means verily, koshaha, sheath. Cha means and, annen, by food. Jivati, exists. Vinashyati, dies. Tadvihinaha, without it, that means without food. Tvak charma, skin. So skin like a outer and inner skin, both of them. Outer layer, inner layer. Mass, flesh. Rudhir, blood. Asti, bones. Purish, filth. Rashi. Rashi means like a bundle or a heap. That's called a Rashi. Na means not. Ayam means this. Swayam itself. Bhavitum. Bhavitum means to lie. Aharati deserves. Nitya Shuddha, ever pure. The body is a product of food. It constitutes the food sheath. So out of the 5 sheaths, this body is the food sheath. It exists because of a food and dies without it. Okay? It is a bundle of skin, flesh, blood, bones, and filth. Filth is needed too. Mal is needed to keep this body alive. Okay? But a proper amount of mal. Never can it be the self-existing, the eternally pure Atma. So this is just a body made up of all these things. It's not the Atma. And it cannot exist by itself. With the energy of the Atma is keeping it alive, and that An, of course. So as I said earlier, from this verse onward, there's a deep reflection on each of the 5 sheaths of the human personality. If you ever wanted to know about the sheaths, this is here. That's where, whenever I give general topics also, this is where all the information is coming from the scriptures. Nothing is mine. So as a result of this deep and unbiased reflection, we can negate this. Otherwise, if somebody says negate it, we cannot negate it. Because we have been convinced, we have convinced our own mind, no, I am the body. But when we look at these arguments given by these rishis and we reflect upon it, only then we can negate it mentally. Sure, physical body is very powerful, very attractive. Not just in a human body, we see very attractive animals and the birds. So physical bodies are very all the attraction because this is the physical thing which can see. And most of us are aware of nothing nobler and diviner than this body. Because we have not gone deeper than this. We just worship the body. Life after life, a person has been living, striving under the self-preserving instincts. We want to live longer, we want to enjoy, we want to eat, we want to travel just for this body. But all of a sudden, these rishis say, you are not the physical body. It sounds ridiculous to us. But that's why he's really bringing our mind so that we can reflect upon it. He says, analyze it carefully, investigate it. Only then we'll come to know ourselves also. That body which is born out of food, exists in food, goes back to the food. It becomes a food for others, our body. It's called Anumikosh. That's what it is. So in other words, when this body is carefully analyzed, it is found to be constituted of skin, flesh, blood, and marrow. That's what this body is. So the container which is made up of these parts is filled with the fecal matter, and all this together constitute this fascinating, enchanting my body. Okay, we just like to have the ownership of it. So this body cannot be ever pure, cannot be, it is just a finite, it's not infinite, it's not self-effulgent. Okay, so keep this in mind or meditate on it a little, think about it. 155. पूर्वम जने अधिमृते अपि न अयम अस्ति हि जात क्षणः क्षण गुणः अनियत स्वभावः न एकः जड़ा घटवत् परिदृश्यमानः सो आत्मा कथम भवति भाव विकार वेतः. पूर्वम, before. Jane means birth, so that means before birth. Purvam jane, adhimrite, after death. Api means and or also. Na means not. Ayam means this. Asti means exists. Jat kshanaha, when born. Kshan gunaha, fleeting nature. Aniyat swabhavaha, of uncertain nature. Uncertain nature means ever changing nature. Na means not, ekah means one, jada, inert. Cha means and, ghatvat, like a jar. Paridrishyamanaha, an object seen. Swa atma, one's own self. Katham means how, bhavati becomes bhav vikar vetaha, the witness of changes in things. Bhav vikar vetaha. Before its birth, it does not exist. Okay, so that means the body does not exist before its birth. So he's not talking about the Atma. Atma always exists. But he's talking about this food sheath. So before its birth, it does not exist, nor does it continue to be after its death. Because the so-called death is the death of the body, not the death of the Atma. So before its birth, it does not exist, nor does it continue to be after its death. It lasts only for a short period. Short period, he said. Kshanuguna. For us, it seems like 100 years, 50 years, 75 years, or more than 100 years. It's only a kshan. It's not that long when you look at the whole cycle. It lasts only for a short period. Its qualities are fleeting, keep on changing. Today, it's healthy. Next moment, we don't know how we get sick. We are full of energy, then we don't have any energy. So its qualities are fleeting and by nature subject to change. So this is the nature of this body, to go through the changes. Nobody can claim that I eat organic food, I exercise, it will not grow old or get sick. Nature of the body. It is diversified and inert, and like a jar is a sense object. It's just only an object. How then can it be the self, the witness of all changes in all things? Because it itself is changing, how can it witness the changes? For a witness, it has to be steady, it has to be constant, it has to be self-effulgent. Body is not. So during this short period of time, while the being resides in the body, the nature of the body changes from moment to moment. Remember that. Now it's happy or healthy, next moment unhappy, unhealthy. Now sattvic, then tamasic or rajasic. We have seen a good person becomes bad and a bad person becomes good. All the time the gunas are changing because this body is nothing but the composite of these parts which have the gunas. So these changes, and not just only a physical, but when we look at the emotional, intellectual, it even muddies it further. We'll see that later on. Right after this unmade sheath, he's going to talk about the other sheaths also. So the body by itself is inert. It's not conscious. Remember that. My clothes move where I move, but they do not have any independent movement. So when the individuality presiding over the body's activities departs, it perishes. Okay. So it is only an instrument. Remember, it's an instrument for consciousness to function through. See, just like you have seen people using the telescope. Telescope by itself cannot see the distant objects, but an intelligent observer alone can see through that telescope far away. Okay, telescope itself is inert. It's an object, the same way this body is an object. Okay, I'll just stop it here because I'm sure you have questions, comments, and but he's not done with this body. So we'll continue and finish it up next time. How beautifully he's opening it up for us so that we can reflect on it. It's not that he's telling us to neglect it. There is a difference between neglecting and negating. So he says, negate it, don't neglect it. We need to use it, but it is just an object. Do not get used by the object. Okay, so I'll stop it here. Let me do the Purnamada, and then we'll take some questions, and then Havan, not Havan. Havan is constantly in my mind, looks like the bhajan. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Okay, any question, Jyoti?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. See, somebody got to start.
I have a question.
Yes, yes, Vaishnavi, yes.
I'm always so captivated by those people that really have an activist heart and a charity heart and wake up and do the physical labor of helping others, you know, creating orphanages, doing that physical labor of charity. But then you also have, you know, sannyasis who sit in meditation constantly. Is there any elevation of the physical act of devotion? Like in the end, on the, you know, the moment of reconciliation when we decide if our Atma goes to God or gets reborn, what if someone exists, you know, just under a tree meditating their whole life versus someone else who doesn't do that, but actually engages in physical service for others? Is it still the same type of equivalency as long as the soul's recognition of its true Atma is the same in both?
Yes, you said it. See, ultimate recognition, whether we recognize through the service or whether we recognize through knowledge or whether we recognize through devotion or whether we recognize by renouncing. So ultimate goal is oneness with him. Whichever way we can do it. All the ways are equally important and good. There's no one way better than the other. We got to know which route is good for me and what is the goal. Okay, so according to our own aptitude, we have been traveling on this in this journey for countless lifetimes. So some people have the aptitude of just devotion, but again, devotion to merge with him. Some people, yes, just like you said, charitable work they can do. If their ego does not erupt higher, then that charity is good too. They see the oneness and the knowledge, meditation, so it does not matter. Goal is the same, and we got to remember that goal. But good observation, Vaishnavi, good question also. Yes, a lot of people are confused about that. And most of the time, people just try to put others down. No, we are all one. So the closer we are towards that realization, we see the oneness. Oneness. Okay, but being true to your own path, whatever you're working on, is very important. If you keep shifting, then there's a chance of wasting time, I would say. Okay, and just little frustration inside. We are just disconnecting from that highest realization. Okay, so no path higher or lower. They're all just paths. So stay on the path, keeping the goal in mind. Okay. Yeah.
Sujata has a question. Sujata?
Yes, Sujata.
As a follow-up on that, I just wanted to make the observation that most of us just have a limited amount of time to come to this realization in this one little life of 80 years or so, if we're lucky. By the time you come to the realization and you find the path and you realize that, this short time is in this life is what we've got to
Yeah,
reach
but
the ultimate goal.
the thing is that there's a continuation
There is,
from this life. So if realization has come at the end of life, doesn't matter. The next time around, in a different body, that realization is there. Because realization is with the subtler body. And the subtle body is not a new body. Only the physical body we end right now. Subtle body and the causal body, we don't end.
Right.
So it's almost like a night comes and I sleep, then next day I start where I left off. And physical death is just a longer sleep, that's all. Journey continues. Okay, so we got to remember that. All rishis said it. Lord Krishna very emphatically in Bhagavad Gita, you said it. You start exactly where you left off. And God helps us. So, okay, so we got to just keep on walking, keep on doing what we are supposed to do. Okay. Yes, Jyoti.
I think we're good.
We are good. Okay, all right. All right. So I think Kamla, are you singing today? Is she there?
I'm here.